Welcome to the HRchat Show, one of the world's most downloaded and shared podcasts designed for HR pros, talent execs, tech enthusiasts, and business leaders. For hundreds more episodes and what's new in the world of work, subscribe to the show, follow us on social media, and visit HRgazette.com.
Welcome to another episode of the HR Chat Show. My guest today, my returning guest today, is one of the most famous people in the world of HR, I would have to say. He's also the best dressed man in HR and one of the nicest people that I've ever met in the world of human resources. Who is it? Of course, it can only be, listeners, Mr. Steve Browne, Chief People Officer over at La Rossa's Inc. Steve, welcome back to the show today. Thank you very much for coming back.
Hi, Bill. It's always great to talk to you, my friend.
So you have been on the show a couple of times, including, I think it was episode 500 or something, because you're that special. But for those folks who haven't met you yet, maybe they haven't heard of you. I can't believe it, but maybe they haven't. Why don't you start by taking a minute or two and introducing yourself?
Well, technically, my day job is, as you mentioned, the Chief People Officer at La Rosa's. We're a pizzeria. So I get to do all the wonderful things with people, every aspect of people. And as for who I am, I'm an intentional HR person, a little different thinking, not your traditional HR person, not only from my dress or choice of dress or shirts, I should say. But, you know, I think that the world of HR has always been fascinating, continues to be fascinating. I find some people have kind of lost heart, and that concerns me. But I think we can turn that around because we're in a good place.
We are recording this conversation just a little while after Memorial Day, and you posted on LinkedIn a very touching post about your dad, who served and who you lost sadly when you were very little. And as part of that post, you wrote the following: "Always remember that your life will be a legacy. My hope is that you make a lifetime impact on those around you so they know how you poured into their lives. Don't float through your days. Be intentional. Build that legacy and thank the family of veterans who made the ultimate sacrifice for all of us this Memorial Day and every day." So my question on the back of that is, Steve, what would you hope your legacy to the world of HR would be?
That is a giant question because I don't know that I want to be memorialized or anything like that. It's funny. Too many people talk about getting into HR reluctantly, or I happen to fall into it. I hear that all the time. I didn't. I chose. And I think that it should be the type of profession where people say, this matters. And I get to touch people's lives every day. Good, challenging, difficult, wonderful, all at the same time. But there's no other profession, not one, that gets to work with people this intentionally, this intimately. And so my legacy is I want people to understand that what we do or what I've done or what this field is matters. It should matter organizationally. It should lead organizationally. It shouldn't be in the back seat or on the sidelines. And I get so frustrated when I hear about companies that do that, like relegate HR, and we tolerate it. I just don't understand it. I think we should be in the forefront because wherever there are people is where we should be. If people would value others and be others focused, I think that if people say that about me, that I was others focused, I'm good.
I love that. So this is an audio podcast, of course, listeners. However, I'm just going to get Steve to do a frustrated face because I can't imagine you doing a frustrated face. You're always so happy. What's your frustrated face, Steve?
I can't just do it. When I hear people in a space where they just tear things down or they feel they're torn down themselves, I just want to come up and hold them and say, it's good. I know what you do is hard because I do it with you. It's not this, placating, hey, hang in there, person. It's, no, I know what we do is hard. But what's really funny, and I'm going to talk about this even more when I go to SHRM, I know we're going to talk about that later, is too often we talk about what we do in third person. We forget that we're people ourselves. And so if we could just understand the more human we are as HR professionals, the better practitioners we'd be. And, to have a laugh with somebody or cry with somebody or, let it out and scream, that's okay. Too often we hold it in and it sells us short, and we shouldn't do that.
I like that. I've got a lot of love for this chat, listeners. And as Steve mentioned, we will be talking about SHRM shortly because Steve and I will both be there. We'll be partying away. I'm going to walk straight up to the big man and give him a giant hug, if that's okay, Steve, if you don't mind.
Oh, of course.
Thank you. But before we get there, you are, of course, a very respected voice in the industry. So my next question for you is, what are you seeing? What are the frustrations for HR leaders in 2024? For example, on this show, a lot of the conversations that I'm having with HR leaders, they share things such as this is the year where a lot of people are staying in their jobs. So it's a frustration for them when budget's not coming through to ensure that the professional development is happening for their best people so that they stay in 2025 and beyond. Maybe that's something you've heard too. Something else that I've heard a lot of is, I'm sorry, listeners, we can't do a show without talking about it, AI and how that's impacting HR. And I'm hearing a lot from leaders that sure, it's being implemented in lots of different ways throughout the employee life cycle, with the exception there seems to be a hesitation of the sourcing and recruitment stages, because generally speaking, a lot of the leaders I chat with are still very skeptical that there are inherent biases within machine learning and AI. I'm going to shut up now. What are you seeing, Steve? What are the big obstacles?
The big obstacles is the transition of what companies are becoming or not becoming. They have to choose. What I'm seeing is companies that are choosing to be more relationship based are the people that are going to work on the people that want to stay. There are different ways to do it instead of professional development only. From a budget perspective, I think I choose to develop you, Bill, because you matter to me in my company. You add value. This is how. The days of just expecting someone to show up are far, far in the past. But we keep holding on to that model. Like we're so more focused on, return to work and attendance and visibility. But visibility doesn't transfer to productivity. It just means I'm seen. So I think it's if employees don't feel that they're getting the attention they deserve, they'll leave. It's just after the pandemic, they are no longer going to tolerate the I need to work because you told me mantra. And companies that refuse to be relationship based are going to fail. If they're not failing already. There are some large brands who are really, really struggling. And when you look at the core or you hear the people from those areas, they'll say, yeah, they didn't pay attention to me. Yes, they didn't acknowledge me. I was not valued for what I brought to the table. I was always told what I did was wrong. We've got to wake up because the wave it's upon us. Honestly, this concerns me far more than AI. AI is another tool. I mean, we freak out like, oh my gosh. And there's two things. One, like every new tech trend, everything has to be mentioned. I love how you framed it. Oh, sorry, we have to talk about it again. It reminds me when we did the switch. Oh, I'm old, way too old. But when we had the whole .com scare in 2000, it's like, oh my gosh, the world's going to end because we had so much uncertainty. We don't do well with uncertainty, and it's the next wave of uncertainty. So the fear of bias, I think, is legitimate. I really do. It's still a machine. What we keep forgetting is machine learning. Now, it's fascinating. But from a process standpoint, I think there's a lot of advantages. What we should do as HR professionals is learn how to use it effectively instead of react out of fear of the unknown. I don't know how many times we have to say this, but the next uncertain thing is going to come sometime. So instead of reacting in fear and confining, and I heard one company talk about, we're going to have a policy on AI. It was funny is they'll probably use AI to write the policy.
That's true. That's true.
It's funny. We should look at the capability of what is in front of us so that we can reskill our people to add value in different ways instead of being fearful of the technologies that's in front of us.
Spoken like a true pro with so much experience that, yes, you were there for the .com times. Very good. Okay. Let's now switch focus, Mr. Browne, and let's talk about SHRM. SHRM's coming up, SHRM 24. It is in just a few weeks as we record this interview. It's happening in beautiful Chicago. And I would imagine the vast majority of our listeners will be familiar with SHRM. However, although 65% of our listeners are in North America, 35% ain't. So maybe they're less familiar. Can you take a minute, Steve, and just introduce SHRM to those people who perhaps out there haven't heard of the association?
Well, I think SHRM is a wonderful, wonderful place where you can get to know people that do what you do. And I think that we miss that part of it. The professional development side, they're untouched. They're way ahead of the curve. They have all kinds of arms, whether it comes to advocacy on the government side or impact in the business world. Johnny's talk about civility and bringing up bigger topics that companies should be looking at from an HR perspective. I think SHRM offers such a broad variety for the new person coming into the workforce to the senior person. One of the things I'm very excited about is I joined the SHRM Executive Network 4 years ago, right when it started. And there is a track for the people in the executive network. And I've been in SHRM, as long as the .com thing. I think they finally got it right. It's really a wonderful, wonderful newer aspect of SHRM. So now I think the organization can walk alongside you throughout your entire career, regardless of the level. Very few organizations can do that. And I think you can find your niche. I look at it more, how do I utilize the resources and connect with the people I find versus what the organization is as an organization. It is a business. It's a great business, but we need to bring the HR part of it, the people side of it is why I go. Get to meet people like you.
I get to meet people like you. I still remember the first time I met you. It was at SHRM. It was DC. It was, I want to say 2015, Steve, 2016, something like that.
Yeah.
It was the same week as the Battle of the Bastards on Game of Thrones. I remember that because I had very, very bad signal and I'm trying to watch it on my phone one evening during SHRM. So that it just stuck in my mind. And Steve's a big guy, listeners. He's got this big charisma, this big aura about him, and he just came over and said hello. And I think he gave me a hug straight away, actually. So that stuck with me, Steve. You probably don't remember that because you chat to so many people, but that always stuck with me. So now then, you've held various roles with SHRM over the years, including being on different boards and whatnot. The association, it's pretty important, right? It's the biggest in the world. The expo this year will have something like over 660 different vendors on the floor. Why is it uniquely good? For want of a better way of putting it, there are other associations out there. There are other organizations that do similar things to SHRM. Why is SHRM the gold standard?
I think there's a lot of reasons it's the gold standard. One, it has a vehicle of local chapters, state councils, and volunteer leaders. There's different ways to join and really immerse yourself as an HR professional. The certification, I think, is the top-notch certification out there because it's applicable. It's a competency-based certification, but you can apply it, and it forces professional development in the field where people don't develop themselves. We develop everybody else, but we don't develop ourselves. So the ongoing education is great. And honestly, much of the content is wonderful. So it ranges from very technical, stuff for day-to-day hands-on things to sessions that really stretch you and make you think differently. So I think, like I mentioned before, you can find where you want to plug in And I don't know that every association does that, nor should they. I think there's a lot of variety. We're going to talk about, the Disrupt HR group. There's CIPD. There's local chambers and stuff. It's not a SHRM versus another. SHRM offers quite a wide breadth of things to check things out. And then if you want to find specialty things or things that are really different, there's those opportunities around the world as well.
You are presenting a couple of sessions at SHRM 24, Mr. Browne. Can you take a couple of minutes and tell listeners all about them? And for those people who are lucky enough to be in attendance, either in person or online, why should they come along and take a listen?
Well, I think, first of all, I always, it's an honor. It's so funny. I don't do this for a living. I don't speak for a living. But those that do great work. I come and get to speak as a fellow practitioner. So to be able to stand on the stage and speak to my peers, there's very little that's more invigorating than that. So the two sessions I'm giving are one, being a human in HR. For years, I chose to wear the company face or the work face or I represent the company against type things. And I was a horrible, horrible HR person. Now when I come in and I can be myself and wear my fun shirts and have my lava lamps and hang out with people and laugh like crazy, it makes HR much more personalized. And in a workforce that is requiring people to be personalized, if you are not doing that yourself, you're going to hate what you do. And there's no reason for that. So that's one session. And the other one is new. It's how to be a change catalyst. It's not how do I manage change, it's how do I drive change? Because too often, I think we have change overwhelm us like a giant flood that just washes over us. And we're like, crud, what do we do now? Instead of saying, I try my best to be ahead of it and drive the change in my company. And we tend to forego this and give it off to other people. Like we defer, like, oh, other people drive change, like sales or marketing or operations. We work with people, man. We can drive change all day. So I'm excited about that session as well.
Is there an optimum number of lava lamps one needs to be an amazing HR leader?
Well, you should have at
quite
least
a lot in your background.
You should have at least one. I have 7 in my office right now. And it's funny. A friend of mine, I just did a session for her and some senior HR people here in Cincinnati, and they were kind and said, "Hey, we got this for you." And so the new one right here, you can't see it. I know we're on radio versus visual, but it's a lava lamp. So the whole outside looks like a volcano. So it looks like a volcano erupting. But she says, "I thought you'd want to add this to your thing." And when somebody gives you something that touching, my wife goes crazy that I keep getting these things. But if it makes that personal connection, it's well worth it. That's why you should have things like that.
Listeners, others that you can hear from at SHRM on the main stage include, of course, Johnny C. Taylor, who is the president and CEO of SHRM, Sherry Shepherd, who is an Emmy award-winning talk show host, comedian, actress, and author, Jessica Jensen, the CMO over at Indeed. Lots of other cool folks will be on the main stage. Plus, Jay Leno and Kelly Clarkson will be providing entertainment. Why more? What other reasons would you need to come along than those there? And of course, the creme de la creme is that Steve will be doing a couple of sessions. Any other sessions, though, that you're looking forward to, Steve?
I'm going to lose my mind when Jason Sudeikis takes the stage, because I have the Ted Lasso Believe poster right above my door, just like he did on the show. And honestly, if people have never watched Ted Lasso, it is the best HR show ever. It shows the humanity of work. It's so good. So to hear him speak is going to be great. Jennifer McClure is always a plus. I know we're going to talk about Jen here in a second, but she's sought after for a reason. She talks strategically from a business perspective. John Baldino is going to talk about forgiveness at work, and to bring up a topic that's so emotional and it's solid. Louis Lessig does a great thing on legal. Greg Hawkes. I can't catch enough people. The other thing I'm excited about, though, is this year I'm the ambassador for the Better Workplaces Challenge Cup, which is like SHRM's HR tech startup group. It's like Shark Tank. And I just found out that I'm not just the ambassador, but I'm a judge for the finals. And the 3 companies that are coming are all global. And so it just shows such a big reach for SHRM. It's really, really grown. When I started in SHRM, it was very US centric. And now that it's making real progress on the global stage, it's exciting to see.
You see, listeners, we get all the big shots on this show. It's interesting as a Brit. I'm also Canadian. I'm always keen to stress that on the show. But as a Brit who's does quite a bit of traveling in the US. In fact, I just got back yesterday from Louisiana and Texas, New Orleans. I was at a conference and I drove over to Austin and met with Tara Huriani, not the HR lady. Check her out; she's amazing. And I've noticed in the US in the last couple of years, when people figure out that you're a Brit and not an Australian, they go, "Huh. I like Ted Lasso. Yeah, that's a pretty cool show." And that's their favorite reference. That's how they relate to a Brit. There we go. Okay, you did mention just a moment ago Jennifer McClure, who is one of the co-founders of the Disrupt HR movement. There are over 150 chapters around the world. I have the honor and pleasure to be a co-organizer of quite a few of them, 6, 7, 8, something like that, in the UK, in the US, and in the Caribbean. Steve, you've been involved with Disrupt pretty much since the start. Your main focus, I think, is with Cincinnati. There's going to be a big party for all of the disruptors while SHRM is going on. Tell our listeners why you love Disrupt HR. Why is it a particularly special event?
I love Disrupt HR because it's the fringe, it's the leading edge of where HR is. You go to great sessions like you just went to the ATD conference. SHRM's a great conference. I was at World at Work. There's been some really good sessions out in Vegas. Unleash is out there, and HR Tech will be there. But there's most of the sessions, Work Human, they're traditional. They're just traditional. But Disrupt HR is 5 minutes of chaos on a stage where people bring up ideas that just make you really stretch and think. The sessions I've watched online, I've been to, and the ones we have in Cincinnati, they really jump. And what's funny is I'll see more people come to Disrupt events that I don't see at traditional events. So it reaches another facet of the HR profession. And these people are really wanting to see how to grow. And for all of us to get together, it'll be crazy. Jennifer, you, Lori, Eric Kirschat, and it goes on and on and on. I mean, there's such energy around this. It'll be like the old days of the tweet ups. But it'll be good just to see each other and encourage each other, because people don't want to remain stagnant. And I honestly, even SHRM's learning this. If you just keep churning out the same stuff, it's okay. There's a place for it, and you're going to reach people you didn't before. But there's got to be something that's being the leading edge, and that's what Disrupt HR does.
Well, when I got the email invite from Jen last week, I nearly fell out of my chair. I'm like, yes, okay, this is going to be wicked awesome. Hey, one thing that I would add to what you just said there, which I love about the Disrupt format, is forget the actual presentation style itself, the 5 minutes and all the rest of it, but the number of speakers, having around about 14. One thing that me and the co-organizers of the chapters that I'm involved with love about it is that number of speakers, Steve, gives you an opportunity to, you'll have the big hitters. People like yourself will be up on stage, okay? People who are well-respected, well-known. But at the same time, there's an opportunity there for new voices, people who've never perhaps even spoken before in front of an audience, and they've got new ideas, they've got fresh things to share. And I love that, because that format does allow for that, right?
It's funny, the big hitters, so to speak, are the ones who struggle. The ones who are new are like, they're just so passionate and they're ready to go. And I love hearing the new voices. I really do. Because, people need an audience. And they need a way to get themselves expressed. It gets lost in the hole or the void of electronic media and stuff, because things just disappear within moments. But that in-person, 5 minutes, new voices, it's the best. I would encourage every one of your listeners, if they are not connected to Disrupt HR, to do it, because it will change how you view what you do.
I agree. For the longest time, as a co-organizer, I was telling others how to do it. And then I had to finally suck it up and do one myself. So I did my first Disrupt talk in Cambridge, UK last October. I placed myself number 3 or 4, so I'd hardly be noticed. And I just spoke really quickly for 5 minutes. But it's a unique challenge. And my goodness me, you've got to rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. But the other thing, that the way that we always frame it, the chapters that we're involved with, as part of the intros, we always say, this is a very unique community. It's about love. You'll see a whole bunch of people come up. Nobody will get it right. The only person I've ever seen get it perfect is a guy called Perry Timms. Don't know if you know Perry.
I know Perry. Yeah.
He knows everybody. He's like the Kevin Bacon of UK HR. He's the only person I've seen it absolutely perfect. But that's the point, isn't it? It's a challenge. It's about just getting up there, putting yourself out there. Who cares if you don't hit your slides on time? It's not about that. It's about the energy, and it's about, for the audience, their job is to give the love, give the support, and recognize that unique challenge. Anyway, we are almost out of time today for this conversation. Before we do wrap up, Mr. Browne, how can folks connect with and learn more about you?
2 places now. Well, I'm everywhere in social media. I still use Twitter. I will not call it the other name. Because it's about people. What I think people have lost sight of in all of the social media platforms, regardless of what they are, is we keep focusing on the forum instead of the humans. And I know that's my common theme, and it will be till I die. Maybe that's my legacy, is I focus on people. LinkedIn, very active on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, you name it. Ask Browne HR everywhere. Browne with an E, you can find me. I'm not hard, or I will find you.
Browne with an E, you can find me. Okay, very good. Well, that just leaves me to say for today, Steve Browne with an E. This is the 3rd or 4th time we've had you on the show. It's always an honor. You're a busy guy. You could go on any show in the world, sir. You could probably go on with Jay Leno, but you for whatever reason you chose to spend a little bit of time with me again today. So thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, bro. Can't wait to see you in SHRM in a few weeks.
Me too. And listeners, for now, as always, happy working.
Thanks for listening to the HR Chat Show. If you enjoyed this episode, why not subscribe and listen to some of the hundreds of episodes published by HR Gazette? And remember, for what's new in the world of work, subscribe to the show, follow us on social media, and visit hrgazette.com.